When you join ASUG, you'll never face an SAP challenge alone again. We connect our members to exclusive educational opportunities and a community of like-minded peers, so you can get the most value from your SAP investment. Get smart fast and learn from the best. Stay on the leading edge of SAP practices and get access to the latest research, insights, and unbiased editorial and interviews from industry experts and your peers. Expand your network. ASUG makes up the biggest, most diverse, and most engaged SAP user group in the world. Any question or challenge you have, there's someone who's seen it before. Connect with a network of 130,000 plus SAP savvy professionals to solve complex business challenges, work smarter, and expand your SAP skills. Get set to lead. Improve your SAP expertise by collaborating with peers to solve business challenges and find innovative solutions. With 38 regional chapters, you and your teams can connect and meet with other SAP professionals and take advantage of dozens of speaking and leadership opportunities throughout the year where you can share your ideas. Become a leader in the ASUG community by leading a local chapter, joining our executive exchange, and participating in one of our 13 and growing ASUG Alliance groups, or make connections and learn at ASUG events. Keep learning, connecting, and growing with ASUG.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today and welcome to Breaking the Silos, Unified Access Reviews for SAP and your entire IT landscape. I'm Heather Lima, and I'm a content producer here at ASUG. Today's webcast will be recorded, and tomorrow you'll receive a post-event email with a link to the on-demand recording. If you found that this webcast is useful or you think your colleagues can benefit from it, please go ahead and forward that link on, or watch it again. And you'll also see a link to the survey. Please take a moment to take that 2-question survey because we like to know what you think here at ASUG. If you have any questions, go ahead and enter them in the Q&A box. That's over to your left. We will be answering questions at the end of the webcast, and anything that we don't get to, we'll answer offline. Now I'll hand off the webcast to our speaker, Jasmine Chenikara Fagiz with Pathlock. Jasmine, take it away.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you for inviting me here. So today we're going to focus on the challenge that almost every organization faces, which is how to manage access governance and user access reviews when you have an enterprise-wide landscape where you have SAP and non-SAP applications. Okay, so to introduce myself, my name is Jasmine Chenikara-Verghese. I'm from Pathlock, and I've been working for the last 20 years in the space of networking technologies, cybersecurity, and governance. And for the past 10 years, I've been shaping strategies and driving innovations that help organizations solve their challenges around access governance and application security. So in today's webinar, we're going to focus on that challenge of handling user access reviews across SAP and non-SAP systems. And we're first going to talk about why access reviews are so critical, not just for meeting compliance requirements, but really for strengthening security and improving your operational efficiency. And we'll talk about the current complex business landscape, where it's harder to manage access uniformly and in a consistent way and have a repeatable process. And really that's because you have SAP systems, you have Salesforce, you have Oracle, you have Microsoft, you have all these different applications in your environment. So we'll talk about practical strategies to unify and streamline access reviews that covers all these different SAP and non-SAP systems. So let's talk about access reviews first. It's one of those controls that are often seen as a compliance checkbox activity, but it's really a foundational control for both security and for governance. And access reviews is about answering who has what access and why. Users should only have access to applications and access to data that they need and nothing more. But the reality is access tends to accumulate over time. People change roles, they change departments, projects shift. So, and there's not always a consistent practice to go back and revoke what's no longer needed. Now, from a security standpoint, access reviews are needed so that those unused or excessive access that can become easy targets for insider threats and external attackers who can compromise accounts. You want to be able to spot those. So you want to spot those accounts with obsolete permissions before they become a threat. You want to reduce insider risk and minimize accidental and intentional misuse. And you want to catch those orphaned accounts, those accounts that may have belonged to an ex-employee or is related to unused services that could be exploited. And then we have compliance that drives user access reviews. So we have a lot of regulations. We have SOX for financial controls. We have NIST for cybersecurity frameworks. We have GDPR for data privacy. We have ISO standards for information security. And all of these regulations require that you have regular access reviews to ensure sensitive data is only accessible to authorized individuals. Access reviews are really needed to build trust with your customers and your partners to show that you're serious about protecting sensitive data and you're serious about these regulations. And at the heart of all these frameworks is really the concept of least privilege, making sure users only have access that they really need to do their job and their job responsibilities and nothing more. So access reviews also give IT and business visibility and clarity on who has access to what and why. So it enforces accountability across the business. Reviews force the business to take pause and take inventory and really look at what their users are doing and what kind of access they have in their different business applications. And it ensures that your access is aligning with your organizational policies. So we've talked about user access reviews in general. And in many organizations, access reviews are actually happening. Mostly in the SAP landscape, you definitely will have user access reviews happening because SAP is high risk. It's a business critical application, and it's really integrated with all your financial and operational activities. And it's a core system auditors usually look at. But your landscape is more than just SAP. It's SAP is just part of a broader application environment that you have. So you'll have SAP as your core ERP system, but you'll have other applications to fill gaps or optimize performance or meet other business requirements. So most enterprises are running a complex ecosystem of applications. You'll have Salesforce, you'll have Workday, SuccessFactors, you'll have different Microsoft solutions, and you might have older applications. Maybe you have PeopleSoft, JDE, Bond, other applications as well in your environment that are needed for your business requirements. And each of these applications can have sensitive data, privileged access, and are a potential compliance exposure. But each of these different applications are probably running user access reviews in silos. They're running independently with different frequencies and different processes. And that becomes challenging because you don't have a unified view of what's going on in your landscape and a centralized visibility about your access. So when we talk about siloed applications, what we realize it's not just the applications themselves that are managed in a silo, it's the process of reviewing access and the whole process of access governance that's also fragmented. So you'll have employees with multiple accounts across different applications that you may not be aware of. You may have, and each application has their own security model. And in that security model, there might be multiple levels of permission. So it's really hard to do a consistent access review process across the board, across your different applications. And then you'll have inefficient or ineffective workflows as part of your review process. In some systems or in some applications like SAP, you might be lucky enough to have automated access reviews. You might have built-in tools that streamline the process. You may have SAP GRC, access control to help you streamline the user access review process. But in other applications, it might be a manual process or partially manual process. So in that case, IT and admins have to go in and extract user and access data, and they'll have to dump it into spreadsheets. So they have large volumes of data that they need to correlate to the right identities and employees, and then assign it to the right reviewers. So this could take days and sometimes even weeks to pull that data from the databases and from these applications. Then they have to send all that data to the reviewers, probably by email. They have to chase down the reviewers to get their approvals. They have to remind them. So you end up with missed reminders, maybe inconsistent follow through. And for the reviewers, this is a hard task as well. They don't have enough visibility into the access they're looking at or the people they're reviewing. And so they might just approve reviews without really understanding the access that they're keeping and the associated risk that they're allowing to be retained. And it's more about clearing their workload than conducting a meaningful review. And we've seen real world cases where it takes 2 to 3 months almost to complete a review for a single application instance. And by the time it's done, the access snapshot that they were using and certifying against is already outdated. So since so much effort has to be put into complete user access review campaigns, they'll probably run less frequently. And that means your organization is vulnerable during your those audit periods or between those audit periods because you're keeping those excessive or obsolete access with the users. So now your organization is also exposed to those access risks, especially cross-app access risks. So for example, let's say your user has access in Workday and an SAP. In Workday, they have HR admin access, so they can hire employees, change salary levels, trigger payroll runs. And they also have finance and payroll access in SAP, let's say, in which case they can post payroll entries and release payments. So now you created a cross-app risk where that user can go in and create a fake employee and inflate the salaries in Workday and then approve and execute the payment in SAP. So now you have fraudulent payroll payments happening with no oversight and no indication that there was a violation happening. And when applications are siloed, you're probably running into some compliance gaps. Maybe provisioning is done outside the typical compliant processes. So for example, maybe IT is going directly into some target applications and assigning access and roles directly to users without any oversight, any approval process. So then you may end up with the finance user who has admin level access in a non-finance system. So this kind of over-provisioned access, it gets missed when you're doing siloed reviews. And auditors don't just want to know that reviews are happening. They need proof that the reviews were meaningful and effective. So without context, without a centralized audit trail, and with all this access data fragmented across different systems, it's hard to prove that to auditors in a cohesive way. Also, when you think about how your organization is going to scale, you're going to have more users, more applications added in. This compliance problem becomes worse. What might have worked for 1 or 2 systems where you ran individual reviews, that was fine. But when you go to 10, 20, 50 systems, some applications may fall through the cracks. Maybe the reviews are not done so frequently, and then they don't meet the compliance requirements. And even if they are being reviewed, maybe the reviewers can't handle dealing with all that data that they're looking at, tight deadlines, and no context. So they might delay the task of reviewing these items, or they may just rubber stamp approvals just so they can move on. So the challenge of siloed access user reviews can't be solved by just running these reviews in parallel. You could schedule reviews across the different applications to coincide, but they're still happening in isolation across different tools, using different processes, having different security and access data models. So you're left with the same real core problem of you're dealing with siloed governance. And since access risks don't live in one system, they're distributed across your application landscape, then your access governance should do the same. So we're going to shift from application-specific reviews to enterprise-wide visibility and control. This means expanding our user access certification programs, our access governance programs to include SAP and non-SAP systems, and have a centralized enterprise approach for this. In this way, we can establish a single source of truth for the identities and the access. We can apply consistent access policies and review processes across the organization. So how do we do this? How do we get to this enterprise-wide access governance? The first step is understanding where we are today. That means taking inventory of all the identity stores, systems, and applications in the landscape, identifying how access is currently managed and by whom, and identifying those pain points. Do we have manual provisioning? Do we have manual access reviews? Is there inconsistent access policies? Is there a lack of visibility into some systems? What are the audit challenges? And so when we find these things and identify them, we can expose where the gaps are and help us prioritize which process needs to be tackled first. Next, we want to define what enterprise access management should look like for us. What will be our source of truth for identity? And typically that's going to be one of your HR systems. And from that HR system, you're going to pull data and establish a correlation between the user accounts in those business critical SAP and non-SAP applications with the actual employee identities within your corporate environment. We also want to define what are our global access policies and standards. Is there any localization to these policies required for different regions and different departments? How do we handle joiner, mover, leaver processes? And what roles should we standardize across our organization? So all these questions need to be answered as you create this access governance model. So once we've defined our model, let's start aligning our applications and their access with this governance model. So we'll start by integrating our core SAP and non-SAP systems into a single place for central visibility. We want to pull all that user and access data to a single place where we can see it through a single interface. And we want to focus on the quick wins first. We want to look at applications with the highest impact or highest risk. So you might start with all your SAP applications. Maybe you start with all your ERP applications, your SAP, your Oracle, your PeopleSoft, your JDE type of ERP applications. Maybe that's what you start with first. And then you expand out in phases. And each time you bring a new application in, you want to ensure that it's following your access governance model that you've already aligned and put in place. So now that your applications have been integrated, we want to centralize how access is defined and enforced. So you want to start defining enterprise-wide roles and policies. You want to move away from those technical role assignments and move toward a standardized business role or enterprise role definitions and assignments. And those should be based on job function, department, risk level. So you can create a standard role catalog to align access by job function. And the business roles can encompass roles in both SAP and non-SAP applications. And what this does is it reduces the administrator overhead. And you've also simplified offboarding and onboarding. You've simplified user access reviews. You've reduced privilege creep. And you've brought structure to your identity landscape and access consistency across your different applications. And this is also something you would want to do in a phased approach. Maybe you pick your high impact roles, or maybe you pick your birthright roles, collect them together into an enterprise or business role, test them and refine them, and start adding additional roles and business roles into your environment. So in this way, you have a controlled evolution toward a more mature access model. So we've centralized the access data. We now have visibility into all the applications, and we have visibility in all the business role and technical roles. Now we can run those enterprise-wide unified access reviews for multiple applications from a single interface. And I'll talk later a little bit more of how we can mature the user access review process. But this whole roadmap is not a set it and forget it type of process. You want to continue maturing your enterprise access governance model. So you want to have some continuous improvement in there. So what would you want to look at? Maybe you want to monitor your review completion rates. Are your campaigns actually getting to 100% reviewed? You want to make sure you're seeing a reduction in the orphaned accounts, those accounts that are not owned by an employee or it's associated with an unused service. Want to see those reduce as well. You also want to see the SOD violations that are being generated or calculated being reduced. So either those violations are being remediated or mitigation controls have been added. So you want to see those improvements as well. And you want to change your governance model to make sure you see those improvements. And then you want to expand your governance to cover new applications and additional, maybe you want to cover contractors as well, besides standard employees. Maybe you've brought or acquired or merged with other companies that have different applications that you need to bring underneath the same governance model. Then you want to periodically update your policies as your access policies as roles, risk, and even regulations change. So by transforming your your access governance from a siloed approach to an enterprise-wide approach, there's several benefits. You become more audit ready. You're replacing those fragmented, inconsistent access control processes with the centralized framework. So now it's easier to demonstrate compliance because you have detailed logs, you have audit trails, and so it's fast and easy to produce evidence. And with this, you can also, with the enterprise-wide governance, you also can find those hidden cross-app risks a little bit faster. So now you see those SOD conflicts that are happening between Workday, Salesforce, SAP. Then you also see those inactive users with active privileges in all these different systems. And then you can find those inconsistent access policies within these applications or between applications. And so you can improve your least privilege access approach and make sure you're aligning with your policies. And process efficiency is also improved. Instead of reviewing access separately for each application, this governance model allows you to see that in a single interface for the user access reviews. So reviewers don't have to log into different systems, look at different spreadsheets, decipher different types of application role names, or chase data. This saves time, and this reduces error, and this prevents reviewer overload. Enterprise access management also helps you scale better, because now as your organization grows, you have more systems, you have more applications, you have more users, you have more geographies to consider. You can still do that without adding complexity or operational burden. So you have faster onboarding, offboarding. A new hire maybe will be able to get access to 5 core systems in minutes instead of days. And then when you also think about S/4HANA migrations, that's also a challenge. So as S/4HANA migrations happen, you don't want to carry over outdated, risky access from those legacy SAP systems. So with enterprise access governance, you can perform reviews to find those unused roles, roles with SOD risk, and over-provision users, so that you can only migrate, or you only are migrating what's really needed, and you're reducing risk and complexity. So once access controls are moved from a silo to a centralized approach, the next step is really to evolve how we review that access. So the traditional periodic reviews can be overwhelming for the reviewers, and sometimes will dilute the focus of what you actually want to care about and review on. So instead, we want to move toward a smarter, risk-aware review process. You want to move away from the ad hoc access review campaigns and schedule these review campaigns. This could be scheduled quarterly, semi-annually, or tied to your audit cycle. So it'll have a predictable cadence to make sure reviews are actually happening and they're done on time and they're done with the right level of focus. And this will create the consistency and drives the accountability, and also avoids any last-minute scrambles we sometimes see during audits or right before audits. And it sends a message that user access reviews is not really a one-off task. It's actually part of the everyday business. So not all access is created equal. So that's why a key step in maturing your access review process is to move toward risk-based prioritization and risk-based reviews. Instead of treating every access the same, we want to focus more time on high-risk, high-impacting access and roles. We want to look at users who have roles in critical systems or have access to sensitive data. And then those routine or low-risk or birthright-type roles can be reviewed less frequently with a lighter touch. And we want to shift away from our efforts to focus on what matters most. We don't want to waste cycles reviewing read-only access in a basic tool, and then we end up overlooking someone who has admin rights in your financial systems. We also want to incorporate risk criteria, so criteria for data sensitivity, system criticality, user privilege levels. We can tailor all that in our review process so we better protect the business. So now, instead of this being a checkbox compliance activity, we're really aligning the reviews to real-world risk and improving our security posture and really making the reviewers' time count. So we've talked about moving from system roles to business roles to simplify access governance. And this is true for access reviews as well. Instead of managers or reviewers looking at hundreds of technical roles or even activities and permissions, we can assign access through predefined business roles that reflect the actual job functions. So you'll have a business role called finance analyst or a business role called HR manager. And what this does is it elevates the conversation and elevates the activity. Reviewers are now focused on the business context, the organizational changes, the team structure, the evolving responsibilities, instead of digging through all the technical details of the transaction codes and the activities that are associated with the technical role. So now you have a clean and aligned way of doing reviews based on real job responsibilities. And now you're also not burning out the reviewers. So you're not overwhelming them with complexity, and you're giving them access data that's streamlined and easier to understand. So just showing the reviewers a list of business roles or technical roles is still not enough. We want to make these reviews be effective, and we want to give the reviewers context so they can make better decisions. They need real insights. They need to know if the user is actually using this role. And how does this access compare to others in the same job role, the same department, or with the same direct manager? Is this role tied to any sensitive data or segregation of duty type of risks? And by integrating all these analytics, the reviews become smarter. You're not relying just on role names and descriptions, but you're getting real world insights to guide your decisions. And the goal here is simple. You want to make those reviews meaningful and defensible. So when the auditor asks, why was this approved? There is a clear answer, and you have data to back it up. And you don't also always want to wait for your next quarterly campaign to catch risky access. You want to evolve your user access review so that it kicks off a review when something critical changes, when an employee switches departments, maybe when they take on a new job role, or when they leave a project. These are the moments when the access actually becomes obsolete or excessive. And so that's when you want to act. So by triggering reviews based on key events or key transitions, you can ensure the roles are being reevaluated almost in real time. And you're helping privilege creep from happening, and you're keeping your access aligned with the business needs. And so it's a smarter and more effective way of handling those obsolete roles rather than waiting for the review cycle to catch up and find them. So another way to strengthen your access review process is to include corrective actions, because identifying the issue and making a decision that the role is not needed is not enough. You need to act on that consistently. So whether you're deciding that when a role is revoked, you need to lock the user account, deprovision the role, add some risk mitigations, those actions should be part of your review process or your review workflow. And this closes a loop now. So the decisions you made during the review actually result in real world changes. And what it does actually, it changes access reviews from being a passive exercise into an active control, because you're trying to maintain your access and make sure it's aligning with your policies. So now that we've understood the value of moving to centralized enterprise approach and the benefits of maturing your access review process, let's talk about how we can do it well. Even with the right tools in place, if the process isn't designed thoughtfully, you will still run into the risk of ineffective reviews. You'll still have rubber stamping, you may have missed risk, and you may just overload your reviewers with too much data. So it's important to move beyond just doing reviews, but focus on doing them better. So let's take a look at some strategies that can make user access reviews more effective in strengthening your security posture, in improving your compliance outcomes, and making life easier for reviewers, for administrators, and for your auditors. So one best practice we recommend is templatizing your campaigns. So creating reusable templates for your campaigns, whether the template is for a business unit, an application type, a risk profile, you can standardize the process and eliminate a lot of the manual overhead. You can predefine the scope, which users, which roles should be part of this campaign template. Who is going to be reviewing this? Is it always going to be the direct manager, the line manager, the role owners? And you can predefine the workflows that should be used with this template. So this means you don't have to start from scratch every time you run an access review campaign. It saves time, it reduces error, and it makes sure that every review follows the same rules, the same structure, and has the same level of evaluation. So with templates, you're streamlining reviews and you're building a process that you can scale now as you add more applications, as you add more users and more departments, and prevent it from getting more complex. You're building a repeatable process and making sure it's consistent across the different teams, different regions, and different applications. So you're moving from one-off campaigns with a lot of manual work to a more efficient, policy-driven review process that's ready for audits and that's ready for business expansion. So another smart strategy is that makes a difference is to consolidate your user access review campaigns with multiple applications. So instead of running a separate review campaign for each of your applications or for each of your departments, you want to look for opportunities to centralize them into one campaign. So this gives reviewers a unified view of access across the different applications. It reduces duplicate reviews to be done, and it helps you find those cross-system risks that you would not see if you were doing those reviews in isolation or individually for each application. So let's think about your finance team. They're probably using SAP, Oracle, Workday, and maybe some legacy tools. But instead of reviewing each application separately, you can group them together into a single finance and ERP access review campaign, let's say. And this is going to be scoped with the same users, the finance team users, and you can evaluate them against a consistent review criteria. So in general, if you can group applications that way, you can improve how reviewers have to handle all this information that's coming to them. So you can group application based on the ones that are used by the same user population. You can group them by the same business function or ones that have the same review rules. It's all about making the reviews easier and more actionable with how your business works and how much your reviewers can handle and understand. So how do you transform access reviews from a burden to a business asset? Automate the whole process. Automate pulling access and user data from those applications. Automate correlating employee information with the application user accounts. Automate the reviewer assignment. Maybe your reviewers are assigned based on roles, based on applications or departments or business units. You want to make sure you have the right people in the loop. You don't want to have missed assignments. You don't want to have to do any manual guesswork. So automate all those. You also want to automate the notifications to drive accountability. So when a review is assigned, the reviewer gets notified. If they miss a deadline, they get a reminder. If they still haven't done their reviews, maybe the review gets escalated automatically, or maybe that access is automatically revoked because it's a risky access. And it's not just, we're not just automating the reviews and collecting decisions. We want to automate those corrective actions. So if the decision to revoke is there, then you want to automate the user account log. You want to automate the deprovisioning. You want to automate the mitigation control that's getting applied. You want to do all that without any manual intervention. So you're moving away from doing reactive activities to more proactive. Instead of chasing down spreadsheets, now you're doing a streamlined, policy-driven, automated process that's also audit-ready. So another smart strategy is to give your users useful insights and analytics. Don't just hand them a list of role names and some descriptions and expect them to make the right call. We really need to give them insight. Is the user actually using this role? Have they logged into the system? When did they last log in? How is their access compared to peers in the same role or department? Are there any risk levels assigned to those roles? Are there any cross-app risks associated with those roles? When you layer all this kind of risk, usage, and peer analytics, Now reviewers can spot those over permission users, outdated access, and those risky users much more easily because their information is right in front of them. So this transforms access reviews from being box checking exercise to being true governance. We're avoiding the rubber stamping, and we're really empowering reviewers with the information they need to make correct review decisions or more effective review decisions. So having a complete defensible audit trail that's always ready to share as evidence is also key. It's not just about proving the reviews have happened, it's really giving full visibility in the whole process of the review and into how the decisions were made and why. So from the moment a review campaign is created, its scope, its configuration, its workflows, its reviewer assignments, everything should be tracked and available for audit. Every access decision that was made, whether it was an approve, a revoke, any reasons associated with it, all of that is logged, along with who took that action and when. So if review is escalated, it's reassigned, or it's automatically handled, that's all captured too. And you also want to make the reporting of all this information easy and consistent. So we want some standardized report templates and maybe even schedule automated updates to the stakeholders and to the auditors, so they're not always chasing you down for this information. And if you are doing automated corrective actions, you want to have some reconciliation reports. You want to be able to reconcile that the review decisions resulted in actual access changes, and you want to confirm the correct actions were taken. So all this, these reports and audit readiness, this level of traceability really keeps you audit ready. And it actually builds the trust and the accountability in the access governance process. So we've talked about unified user access reviews, and I want to show you what that looks like in action in Pathlock. And in Pathlock, we have connectors to hundreds of applications, including SAP systems and non-SAP systems, ERPs, and all other types of applications. And we're bringing all that data into the Pathlock platform, so we have full visibility into the employees' access landscape for both SAP and non-SAP systems, along with information about their risks. And let me show you how we can use all that information to make better user access reviews. So let's start by looking at the employee profiles. And this is where a lot of information really comes together. And what you're seeing here is a unified view of all the employees that are part of this organization. And it's powered by extracting the access data from all the business applications that Pathlock is connected to and correlating that with the identity data from your HR systems and your other HR directories. And so we see there's a number of applications that the employee has access to or has accounts in, and we can also see the risk level associated with that employee identity. So if we go down to like the third user there, we see that Carol Frazier's profile, we're going to look into it further because she's flagged as a high level risk. So when you drill down into Carol Frazier's profile specifically, you see a lot of key employee information. And this is, again, being pulled out from the HR records. So it has information about her department, manager, location, company. And this kind of context helps reviewers and admins instantly understand who this user is and where they sit in the organization and what their typical responsibilities would be. Now let's move into the user's view here that's inside the employee profile. Here we can see all of Carol's application accounts. So she has accounts in SAP ERP, Oracle Workday, JDE, Salesforce, Microsoft. So it gives us a centralized visibility into everything she has access to. And so we have the account names across those different applications. And now I see one of the reasons probably why she was tagged as a high risk, because we see that for Salesforce, the account owner name is not matching the employee name, which is Carol Frazier. So this is probably one of the reasons this is being flagged, or this employee is being flagged as a high risk. So now if we go into the roles view of this employee profile, we get to see the complete list of all the technical roles that are assigned to Carol through all different user accounts across those different applications. We see the role type information, we see this, the application name, we see the user account that's getting this role, and we see some role description. And now remember, each of these applications have different security models. So in SAP, you're probably assigning roles and profiles. In Oracle, you're probably assigning by responsibilities. And in JDE, using user auths. So Pathlock is taking all that data from these different applications, all this access data, and normalizing it into role and role type. So the admins and the reviewers have a consistent understanding of access. So this is the view that brings all that user and access data from all these different applications into one place. So we don't have to log into different applications or different tools or different spreadsheets to go find that access data that we need to review. Now, from the employee profile view, we can also see all the user access risks. And we get a view of any risk violations that are tied to this employee. So we see there are segregation of duty risks or access and access risks here. There's one, I think the second one here is about there's a risk because the user can enter a journal and also post it. So this is considered a high SOD risk because it opens the door to potential fraud or even misuse of access. And we're not just flagging this SOD risk, we're providing some additional description to help explain why it matters so the reviewers and the risk owners can understand the business impact of this risk and take the right action and put in the right mitigation controls or remediations to address this risk. And then we have a listing of all the requests that have been put in for this employee. So Pathlock is an access governance and identity governance solution. So we are handling all the access related to this employee. So we're looking at all the provisioning workflows that are there that are requesting for access, and we're enabling automated provisioning for those workflows. We also have elevated access management workflows for time-bound provisioning for firefighter access. And we may have other governance workflows like risk mitigation for this employee or delegation of access for this employee, and so forth. So now we've taken a close look at the employee profile. Let's talk about how we can use this information to run user access review campaigns. And campaigns really allow us to run the structured, repeatable reviews for an entire department, for a specific set of roles, for a set of applications, while still ensuring that we're consistent, accountable, and compliant. So I have the ability here to create user access review campaigns based on specific configurations and filters that align with my organizational policies and my compliance requirements. So I can really focus the scope of my campaign. So for instance, I can filter the identities that should be included as part of this campaign. Maybe I want to target all the employees, or maybe it's just the contractors, or maybe it's only users from a specific department or region. I can control the focus of this campaign by looking at specific user accounts. Maybe I want to only look at privileged accounts or elevated access accounts, or even service accounts. I can focus the campaign on a specific role, a set of roles. Maybe only consider users who have critical roles like admins or developers or finance managers. Or I maybe want to consider only roles that are associated with a specific business process. Maybe only want roles in this review for general accounting. I can do that as well. I can also filter by systems and applications. So if the review campaign is only relevant to high risk or sensitive systems, maybe I want to run this campaign to only include financial platforms. Maybe I want to run a campaign to only include HR systems or only production instances. I can run the campaigns those ways. So this level of configuration gives us a lot of control, and we can help ensure that the reviews that go to the reviewers are really meaningful, and we don't overload them with very broad sets of data and scope. So as I start building out this campaign, I can also define how often this campaign should run. I can set the scheduling frequency. This could be a one-time campaign, but it makes more sense to run it quarterly, monthly, or whatever cadence aligns with your audit requirements. I can also select the workflow, and this governs how the review process will operate. So the workflow has some key rules in it. it has the rule on who gets assigned the reviews automatically. So for example, maybe it goes to the user's direct manager or the application's role owner, and how many review stages are needed. So maybe this is a two-stage review campaign. And in the first stage, you have the user managers making decisions. And in the second stage, maybe the role owner comes in and puts in their decisions as well. So you're getting added layer of reviews and evaluations, especially for cases where you have sensitive access roles or critical roles that you want to review. And this workflow also handles operational details. So it'll send out those automated reminder emails to keep reviewers on track. It'll auto-complete those escalation rules. So if a review is overdue, we can escalate it to another reviewer, or we can auto-close it and revoke the access, all depending on how the policy is set up. So this kind of automation keeps the whole review process moving with limited manual intervention. So let me show you how PathLock enables reviewers. When you're running PathLock for user access reviews, the reviewers will get an email notification and they'll log into their inbox at PathLock. And as a reviewer, I'm presented with this interface to help me evaluate the access for all the employees that I have to review. And I can group my reviews in different ways for a campaign. I can look at it system by system. I can look at it role by role. But if I come in here as a direct manager, maybe I want to review this employee by employee. So in this case, I'm looking at Carol Frazier's, all the access she has across the different systems. And I can see the roles that are assigned through those different systems, and also the descriptions of those roles. And then I can get more information about this employee, Carol Frazier, that's under review. So I can drill down and see the identity attributes, the same type of information we saw in that employee profile we can show here. So it's the department information, location, job title, hiring date even. And this helps the reviewer evaluate if the access really aligns with Carol Frazier's responsibility. For example, if she's in finance, she probably shouldn't have admin rights in the Microsoft AD system. And I also see that for this role that we're reviewing, it's a composite SAP role. So I can see the information about the child roles associated with it and gives me a little bit more context and understanding what access this role is giving. But I'm not limited to just that. I also have additional insights to help me make better and more informed decisions. So for example, I can see the usage information for this role and for this employee. So it tells me when is the last time the user logged in to the application and used any of the transactions or activities within this role. Or are they sitting unused and she never logged into this account. We can also see if any of these underlying activities or entitlements are flagged as high risk and if she was using them. I can also see risk information. So for this employee, if I drill down to the specific role and account, we can see if that combo is being flagged for any high risk access or if it's associated with any SOD risk violations. And in details, as I go into the details of this risk, I would be able to see what combination of roles actually contributed to this risk. So this means that Carol Frazier has a combination of some of these roles, which is why this risk is being associated with her. We can also get other insights. We have peer analytics, we have historical provisioning data, we have analysis from previous access review decisions. So if we look at the last campaign this user and role combo was in, we can see what the previous decision was. Was it approved or rejected? And in this way, we can start highlight these roles that are frequently approved without changes in multiple campaigns. We can make them candidates for certification automation, or we can make them candidates for low risk tagging, in which case those roles don't need to be reviewed as often. We can also see how this role was provisioned to this user. Was it done through a compliant provisioning process with an automated workflow to get the approval first before it was provisioned automatically in the target application? Or was it manually provisioned? So in this case, it looks like this was a a role that has gone through a request and approval process and then auto provisioned. So we see who the approver was and when it was approved. Now, if this was a manually provisioned role, those sections would be blank. And then this is one maybe that we would want a stricter review for, because manually provisioned roles tend to be more error prone and maybe outside the typical access policies. Then I have insights for peer analytics. And this helps me compare Cal Frazier's access to others in her department or under her direct manager or with her same position title. And if this access looks a little bit different, for example, none of the peers have the same role as her, then it might be a reason to look deeper into why she needs this role and if this role really actually needs to be revoked. So all this information is surfaced in one place from the review screen. So it makes helps reviewers make faster, smarter, and more confident decisions. So by using Pathlock, you can transform your access governance. Pathlock enables you to move to a unified access management strategy, an enterprise-wide strategy that includes both SAP and non-SAP systems. It'll help you move from a silo to an integrated access review process, moving away from those fragmented, isolated access reviews to a more cohesive approach, so you can strengthen your security and improve your compliance. You'll also improve your risk posture because now that you have centralized visibility across multiple applications, you'll be able to identify those cross-app risks, and you'll be able to get to remediate and mitigate those cross-app risks, and you can get to risk posture where you're close to a zero risk. And by doing access governance and automating all these operations, you're eliminating a lot of the administrative overhead. So you're freeing up your IT resources and your business resources and enabling to focus on more strategic initiatives rather than some of these routine tasks. So Pathlock really helps you break down those silos and enables the access governance enterprise-wide through a single pane of glass. So through the centralized portal, we can do compliant provisioning across applications. We have unified access reviews and automated follow-up actions. We have strong audit and reporting capabilities. We can really help the business and the audit because we remove all those audit evidence complexities that often happen. And we're also automating a lot of our controls and making sure the control operational effectiveness is there. So by doing all this, we actually reduce the cost of compliance for many organizations we work with by 70%. And we're reducing risk by 80%. And by automating a lot of these tasks, we're reducing the IT workload by 50%. So whether you're just getting started in your access governance journey, or you're taking your enterprise access governance to the next level, we'll help you find those solutions that meet you where you are in your journey and tailor the solutions we have to help you reach that enterprise-wide access governance model. So thank you everyone for your time. I think we have a few minutes now, Heather, to take any questions.
We do, and we've had a couple questions come in. So I'll remind everybody, if you have any questions, please go ahead and enter them in that Q&A box, and we'll be taking them now. So the first question is, are you able to show the reviewers which Fiori apps and Web Dynapro apps were used by this user?
Yes, you can. As long as we're pulling that information from those target applications from SAP and so forth, we can show that information to the reviewers.
Great. And so the next question is, we're already running periodic access reviews using SAP GRC. How does Pathlock complement or differ from what we're doing today? Is this a replacement or an add-on?
I would say we complement SAP GRC. So SAP GRC is probably running user access reviews and doing user access governance for your SAP applications, but your non-SAP applications are not aligned with how you're doing it in SAP GRC. And so we'll provide the platform for you to be able to align the same policies you have in SAP GRC to non-SAP applications.
Nice. So can you share a concrete example of an event-triggered access review in SAP? What was the trigger and how was it technically implemented?
So we wouldn't do an access review trigger in SAP. The event trigger would happen from an HR system typically, and we would run that access review within Pathlock. So maybe the HR record gets updated and the user has changed from the finance department to the HR department. That'll trigger a review to happen or trigger a review to start within the Pathlock side based on the events that have happened in the HR system. And then we'll run a review of all the roles and all the accounts for that user that's changed departments.
Great. So in environments where SAP users also have access to non-SAP systems like Workday or Salesforce, how do you handle identity correlation across systems that don't share a common user ID?
So the only thing they have to have in common is they have to have an HR record. So we're going to always use the HR data as our source of truth for identity. So we'll correlate for some SAP systems, maybe we're correlating email address. For non-SAP systems, maybe we're correlating by user ID. But each system can have a different correlation point, but the source of truth is our HR system.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Those are all the questions we have for today. Do you have any last words before we sign off?
No, I just want to thank everyone for their time, and I hope this was helpful, and definitely reach out to us if there are more questions on this. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the day.
Thank you. And so you can get Jasmine's email off of the speaker portal, right, like the little box right next to the screen here on the right. And as I mentioned, you will receive a post-event email tomorrow with the link to the on-demand presentation of this. Please go ahead and share it with your colleagues, your friends, anybody who you think might find it useful. And in one moment, when we end this event, you will have a survey that will pop up on your screen. Please take a moment to take that 2-question survey. So thank you very much for attending and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.